to the Turn Yourself into a Booked Out Freelance Translator podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
And Chris Ducker's in the house. He's on our show. Really happy to see you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. Our show is called How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At. And as you know, we serve the community of freelance translators, freelance interpreters, copywriters. How are you doing?
Very good, man. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciate it. I'll just quickly tell the story of how I met Chris. I was at Chris's event in London on the 10th of November. It's called the One Day Business Breakthrough. I was an hour early and I woke up. It was on the brink of Westminster Abbey. And I was an hour early. My mind was racing and I felt this was an important meeting, obviously, because I was meeting you as a business mentor. And I almost sat down at the wrong seat. There was another conference goer called Jason Withers, I think the surname. All I saw was Jason W. And I made a beeline for that seat. And you said, "Is your name Jason Withers?" And I said, "No." So I realized my mistake. And I thought, how important is it to get into the right rooms with the right people? That's my first question. How important is that to meet the right mentors?
Yeah, it's everything, you know. Yeah. It's everything. As you discovered that day, although you're in the wrong seat, you were still in the right room.
Almost. almost had that.
You know, I believe that, you know, nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. I remember somebody said that to me. I can't even remember who it was now, but somebody said it to me, I don't know, probably near on 15, 16 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just stuck with me. And I've said it, you know, virtually every live event I've ever hosted. In my opening remarks, I've said, you know, nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. No matter how successful you are, no matter where you are in your journey, there's going to be somebody in this room that knows more than you, is further ahead on that journey than you, and you can learn from directly. Don't blow smoke up your own backside too much, kind of thing. You know, as you discovered when you were down in London, you get 30, 40, 50 people together in a room for an entire day, some fireworks are going to go off. You know, it's going to be good.
For sure. Are all freelance translators youpreneurs in the strict sense that you define it, the business of youpreneurship? Are all freelance translators youpreneurs?
I think freelancers, period, are. You know, whether you're, you know, offering any sort of translation services or, you know, copywriting services, graphic design, web development, doesn't matter what you're doing. You're providing a service based on experience, expertise that you've got to a targeted audience that needs what you've got as a solution to a problem that they need solved. Then yeah, you're in the business of you. You know, ultimately people are buying you before they buy whatever the service is that you are offering. And that's where the personal brand element comes into it for me. Yeah. I think a lot of people run away with the fact that, you know, I'm cheaper than somebody else, or I've been in business longer than somebody else, or whatever kind of advantage we like to kind of self-program as to why people should work with us. But fact of the matter is, if you're kind of an idiot, or if you talk a lot of smack, the chances of somebody doing business with you, regardless of how competitive you are, how experienced are pretty minuscule, right? So I think, yeah, those things are important. Competitiveness is important, of course. But like I always say, when you build a business of you, it's 100% unique. So you got to lean into that uniqueness above and beyond everything else.
That's the way to stand out in a crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
Leaning
And, you know,
into.
it's simple things. You know, I've worked with people who, I worked with a guy for a while who had bright blue, like sky electric blue lenses on his glasses. And I was like, man, you got to lean into the glasses. You
Yeah.
know, they're in all of your, you know, your headshots and all the rest of it, but they're nowhere on your website. Like, incorporate that. So he incorporated it into his logo, into his style, into his animation for his
Yeah.
YouTube videos and everything. And it's just one of those little things that's only for him and him only, and it's memorable, you know.
I hope he made more sales with the lenses. I'm sure he was more easier
He
to
did.
spot.
Well, he made more sales after I told him to incorporate it in his website more, put it that way.
I want to ask you, because I know you've spoken to Zig Ziglar's son. Zig Ziglar was one of the mentors to Seth Godin, famous blogger, most famous on the planet. How has sales and marketing changed from Zig Ziglar to Chris Ducker? What kind of arc do you see in that journey?
I tell you, I don't think they've changed a whole lot.
Right.
That's just my honest opinion on it. So I just turned 50 last year. I started my sales job when I was 17, so I've been at it for 33 years. It's a pretty long time.
You're an old man. I'm only 48. You're an old man.
Yeah, what little hair I've got left is turning gray, you know. But you know, Zig was a virtual mentor of mine for much of my life, and probably still is in some way.
Yeah.
Shape or form. I don't consume as much Zig content as I used to, because I've consumed it all several times over.
Yeah.
So he passed away, I believe, around about 2002, 3, 4, something like that.
Yeah.
I have got to know his son Tom pretty well over the years. We've spoken on numerous occasions. He's been on my podcast. I've gone on the Zig Ziglar podcast a number of times.
Wow.
And there's something about the way Tom continues to embody his father's legacy, which I think is very, very important. But the reason, see, going back to the personal brand element, the reason why Zig was so good at what Zig did is because it was all Zig all the time. You know, what he was sharing wasn't really specifically all that new, even back in the 70s and 80s, which was kind of his heyday, right? The 80s particularly. It wasn't all that new, Jason, but it was the way he was sharing it. You know, this speech where he would talk about priming the pump, as he would call it, and how, you know, priming the pump. Like, if you go to like one of those old fashioned water pumps, right? Those old-fashioned water pumps where you've got to kind of pump and pump and pump, and nothing comes out initially, but then eventually the suction of the pump itself starts to pump this water, and the water starts flowing out of the pump, right? So he would say, prime the pump, okay. Or in his accent, which is extremely endearing to this day, you got to prime the pump, you know. And he would talk about priming the pump. The same sort of thing in sales, right? You don't just go in and try and close a sale just like that. What you do is you gain trust, and you build rapport, and you answer questions, and you focus on selling with benefits and features, and you don't just go for the jugular straight away. So we've got to prime the pump, right? Nothing much has changed in regards to the way that we sell anything, product, service, whatever it is. We still sell from solving problems. We still sell from, you know, twisting that knife of pain that some people are developing from an emotional perspective. None of those things have really changed. However, what has changed, obviously, is the way that we do them, right? So as before, back in the 70s and 80s, before the internet, we would sell door to door. We would sell at live events in the marketplaces. We would sell in the yellow pages. We would sell in a leaflet drop or a flyer handout at the shopping mall or whatever it was, right? Now we sell via the DMs on Instagram. Now we sell via email marketing. Now we sell on webinars. But what goes into all those individual strategies is actually identical to what it was all those years ago. You got to prospect. You've got to qualify, you've got to pitch with benefits and features, you've got to overcome objections, and then if you do it all right, you're awarded with the sale happening.
I'm so happy you mentioned email marketing, because that's a big part of what I'm trying to convince my people to get into it. I love email marketing. I think it's very powerful, and I'm trying to convince there's a bit of resistance. There's a bit of, not many freelance translators have an opt-in. They don't have a lead magnet. And I'm saying, well, if you want to stand out, get an opt-in, get a lead magnet, put that in and when you're talking about prime the pump, I was thinking about a reel I saw last week or a few days ago. Ryan Levesque was talking about a pool of clients being a lake or a sea, and you need a waterfall or a river running into that lake, which are the leads. You can't just leave the lake unnurtured. You want leads flowing into that. And that was similar to what you were saying about prime the pump. So that's an absolute fantastic analogy. Productivity is in the news. Obviously, there's been a big book out. Ali Abdaal has got productivity on everyone's mind. How can we get intentional around personal productivity, my productivity, everyone's productivity? I mean, it seems to me a universal topic. A fisherman fishing his cod needs to be as productive as you and me, or as anyone else doing any job at all. How can we get intentional? Or just a couple of things.
To pick up on that example, if you're a fisherman and you're fishing for cod, you're not going to spend time wasting hours and hours sitting on your boat with bait out there in waters that you know full well the cod either A, don't exist, or B, don't bite for one reason or another.
Yeah.
In our world, that means that if going to live events is not going to bring the right type of prospects into our world, then we don't go to live events. More fool us to waste time, energy, and money to do that, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, the fisherman who knows exactly where the cod are at certain times of the day because of the temperature of the water or whatever it might be, time of the year, he goes there. He puts his nets down there, and he nets a massive haul every time he does it. With us, likewise, to go back to your example of email marketing, if we know that if we grow an email list, and then that email list over a period of time gets to the point where it's converting business into our ecosystem and bringing clients on board, and we're converting those clients, into paying customers, then at the end of the day, again, more fool us if we want to be unproductive, messing around on bloody Facebook groups, right? We should double down on our email marketing if that's the case. But I think, 9 times out of 10, productivity really comes down to making the right choices and prioritizing the right things. I had a conversation with my daughter, who is our COO at Youpreneur, just earlier on this morning, and she was like, "Dad, my to-do list is just as long as my left leg right now. Like, it's crazy. I'm struggling a bit to kind of figure out what I need to work on first." And so we jumped onto Zoom, and within 10 minutes, we had kind of reshuffled a whole bunch of stuff based on deliverable deadlines that we must meet. You work on tasks related to those things first, and then you go back to the other bits and pieces that aren't so important, that aren't so urgent, right? So I think it comes down to priorities 9 times out of 10.
So is that like setting a traffic light indicator, the red light tasks, the amber tasks, and the green tasks? The green go immediately. So just classifying it like that. Next question. I mean, what's the best business advice you've ever had? You've worked with a lot of mentors. I know you've worked with Michael Hyatt, James Schranko, some big names. What's the best business advice you ever received yourself?
I know James. We've not. I've not been sort of mentored by him specifically. Michael, I've spent a good amount of time with, and there's a whole bunch of other folks that I would deem incredible like Carrie Wilkerson, unbelievable close friend and mentor. Dan Miller, incredible mentor, who's unfortunately in the final stage of his life currently, which is very sad. I've been working with him on and off for probably close to a decade. I think the thing here is that from my perspective, I've always learned from people that have been kind of 3 or 4 steps ahead from where I currently am, right? And I often tell my clients who I mentor, like, your perfect customer is you years ago. So if you think of where you were 5 years ago, you've solved all those problems. You figured that all out 4 or 5 years ago. Find people that where you were 5 years ago and do likewise for them. The easiest kind of mentoring and coaching to do, right?
Mm.
So I think, in terms of like advice, I think, consistency has probably been the one thing that I've learned from looking at people like Mike and other folks out there, with what they do, the way they show up, the way they do it, the quality, the professionalism, and all those things that people like Mike and Carrie and Dan, they personify, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, when you look at it, they're as successful as they are. Yes, they're smart. Yes, they got great offers that they're selling, et cetera, et cetera. But they're doing it consistently. They're showing up every day. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I've gotten that I can ever pass on to anybody else.
Be consistent. This is your book, Rise of the Youpreneur. You were very kind enough to sign this for me in London. There it is. One of them, this is a fantastic.
That's worth at least $1 more than the cover price now.
I haven't tried to sell it on eBay, I promise.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. If I see it anywhere, I'll know where it's from.
It's pride of place in my academic library. So, I mean, one of the things I'm doing is trying to push myself to the boundaries of service provision. So I'm dabbling for the first time, last couple of years with entrepreneurship. I'm trying to push my people into the boundaries of service provision. That's how I describe it. Getting a little bit of resistance. Well, not many freelance translators have lead magnets. They don't have an email list. And I'm like, well, be the first one. Stand out by being the first one. I mean, how else can I communicate the benefits of entrepreneurial skills to service providers without saying, I want to turn you into an entrepreneur, which is not what I want to do. I just want them to be the best possible service providers they can be.
I think what you need to do, Jason, is you need to just continue to show up the way that you've been showing up. If you're harking on about the importance of building an email list and how email marketing is going to help somebody as a freelancer find more clients, close more clients, keep more clients, et cetera, et cetera. If people that are out there within your community are hearing what you're saying, but they're not actually listening, then you can't lead that horse to water, or rather you can't make that horse drink, even though you might have led it to water, right?
Indeed, yeah.
So, it comes down to, unfortunately, but it's a brutal reality, it comes down to a bit of a numbers game. Out of every 100 people that you engage with, 10 people are going to get it. The other 90% won't get it, or thereabouts. But we don't have to worry about the 90%. You just focus on the 10%, right? It's my strategy, what I call market like a magnet. Like a magnet at the exact same time, it attracts the best, it repels the rest, right? So it attracts that 10% towards you. They're the ones that will start an email list. They're the ones that will start emailing that list on a weekly basis with value and insights and solutions and all that stuff. They're the ones that are going to end up being clients of yours at some point as well. The other 90%, we don't need those. We ain't got time for those people. And so, honestly, the fact of the matter is you just got to carry on showing up, keep doing what you're doing, because eventually it will start landing in the right way with the right people.
Yeah, keep showing up and keep being consistent. Let's turn to virtual assistants. You are probably the global authority on remote hiring. I hired my first VA on the back of reading Virtual Freedom. I read it on my Kindle, and I'm delighted with her. She is actually from Cebu, where you used to live. And Heidi is amazing. Big shout out to Heidi if she's listening to the file she's editing, because she will edit this file. So big shout out to her. I couldn't do without her, really. She takes off so many things off my desk, where you're editing audio files, touching up my slides in Canva, so many things. What are the top tasks? I mean, there's a service provider, ambitious, passionate freelance translator listening. What are the top tasks that we can sort of offload to stay in our zone of genius, stay in our area of mastery, and just, get rid of, just leverage the time and work of a competent professional like Heidi, like my VA? What kind of tasks can we do?
I think, it's anything for me. I think the lowest hanging kind of delegation fruit that there is are repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
So if there are tasks that you're doing that aren't directly associated with the service that you're providing, so for example, translation, for example, maybe a little harder to delegate that. Like that's why you're being hired, right?
For sure.
But if there's anything else that's attached to that that could be done by somebody else, more for you if you carry on doing it yourself, right? So anything for me that is repeatable and repetitive on a regular basis, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, that's the low-hanging fruit for any of us that want to start delegating to a virtual assistant, whether they happen to be in my second homeland in the Philippines or somewhere else for that matter, right? Like, yeah. I think what it is that the last 2 or 3 years, if we got nothing else out of the COVID pandemic, it was that the world was quite literally shaken until they woke up to the fact of, holy moly, this is cool. Like, we can be remote. Yeah. We can work for people around the world now. Yeah. I didn't know this was a thing. Well, yeah, it's been a thing for decades. But if you don't know, you don't know. Yeah. But COVID forced us to know, and that's the big difference. And so people like you have got a VA like Heidi. She sounds amazing, but obviously when she started with you, she might have had all this experience working in similar types of tasks and roles and things like that, but she'd never done them for Jason before. So Jason had to spend time teaching her and training her and kind of walking her through processes based on what he wanted and how he wanted things done, right? So there's that little bit of a learning curve, and I think a lot of people are scared of delegating, regardless of whether it's somebody sitting right next to you or on the other side of the world. I think a lot of people are sheepish to delegate because they're worried about the time it'll take to train somebody up. But the fact is, if it's a repetitive, repeatable task, let's teach somebody how to do it one time and then never do it again.
And you buy your time back. You're buying your time back. Yeah.
That's it.
Had I not,
how many times have you heard an entrepreneur say, man, I wish there was more time in the day. Like, there's just not enough hours in my day. Dude, buy some time. Like, you buy groceries to fuel your body to work, buy some time to get more done. That's simple.
I think time poverty is huge, and any solution from an entrepreneur that saves someone's time is going to succeed. I think that's got to, if you save someone time or money, you're going ahead. Yeah, had I not inherited Heidi from a trusted colleague, a friend and a colleague, I would have gone through, just quickly plug your company. You have a wonderful company called virtualstafffinder.com, VSF. And I would have gone through, but I was fortunate enough that I inherited Heidi from a colleague. Let's talk about wellness. I know you suffered quite a severe burnout. So if you don't mind telling us, I know you had a vertebral fusion of L5 and S1, and that was quite a big thing. I've seen you on traction tables, and this is obviously a life-changing injury that you suffered. My question is kind of, how did you let things slip to that point? You're putting in the hours. You must have people around you saying, Chris, you gotta lift your pedal off the gas, man. Dad, you're working too hard. And you must have had people with those voices around you, your loved ones. How did it get to that point of vertebral fusion or collapse?
I mean, I think that, looking back on it, I mean, myself and my wife, who is also my business partner and has been for 20 years almost. Yeah. We were both so focused on building our business at the time that I don't think she ever really said, like, you're close to burnout, you need to take your foot off the gas kind of thing.
Really?
It was we were just getting on doing what we were doing. Now, fact of the matter is, she was involved in the operational side of the business.
Yeah.
So, she's 7 years younger than me as well, so she got a little youth on her side. But I was sales and marketing. That's my lane, and I stayed in that lane.
Yeah.
She was operational, so she was she was in and out of the office quite a bit. She'd be training people, doing interviews, hiring people, working with staff, walking the floor, all those things we had a call center facility. So she was up and about quite a bit through the 9-10 hours or so that she would be in the office each day. I would usually go in a few hours before her. and then stayed right the way through, and we would then go home together, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing about 12 hours a day. She was probably doing, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was like this for about a year and a half or so. But the difference was that I was sat down in a big ass chair all day long,
Yeah.
pushing my lower back without knowing about it. I had a personal assistant who was amazing amongst running my life and my calendar. She also made a great cup of coffee. So I was consuming way too much caffeine. I wasn't working out. I was eating at my desk. I was eating junk takeaways all the time. I wasn't sleeping properly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So looking back on it now, sure, I was headed for burnout. I know that, but you don't realize it at the time.
At the time.
And the funny thing was I was diagnosed with acute exhaustion and dehydration. So I was in hospital on liquids I think I did 4 nights in the hospital on liquids, running blood tests and all this sort of stuff, getting the rep that I needed. I come out, I recover, and I am already starting to take my health more seriously.
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
practicing yoga. I start walking more often. I start getting better sleep and eating better and supplementing and all those things. Meanwhile, the damage had already been done. And a whole year and a half later, I end up crushing that L5S1 disc.
Yeah.
It herniates. I'm in a lot of pain. I go to hospital, and then I need back surgery, which was, this is a year and a half after the initial burnout. So it's kind of one of those situations that you didn't see coming, and there was that kind of delayed response to it all. Now I'm very happy to say I'm in great shape.
That's
I'm
fantastic. I
fitter.
was going to ask you, how are you today? So,
Oh man, I mean, I'm fitter. I'm more energetic. I sleep better.
fantastic.
I eat better. Do all those things better than ever done before in my life. And obviously, yes, I did turn the big 5-0 last year. And you mentioned things like seeing me on traction tables and things like that. There's a reason why. I'm not in pain or anything, but it's about regular maintenance and prevention rather than cure. And so I take my health very, very seriously now.
The reason I asked you is because I decided to launch a productized service from the ITU 2 years ago. I got COVID, then I got pneumonia, then I got multi-organ failure because my defenses were all over the place. So I was in a pickle 2 years ago, not exactly what you suffer, but sufficiently serious as to
Sounds pretty brutal, man.
Pretty brutal, yeah. But I got some clarity, and I thought, I've always wanted to do this. I love coaching. I've coached people through, my specialized medical network, and I've done coaching through that. I thought, let's do it. Now's the time. And I thought of this whilst I was flat on my back. I've spoken about this to my audience, and that's why I was interested in your journey, because you're hugely successful and you had a scare as well. And it sounds like you are much healthier now because of that scare. So people, just look after yourselves and keep your work-life balance healthy and balanced. We're coming up to the time you've given me very kindly, so I'll move into the final 3 or the final 5. What's the best thing about being Chris Ducker? What's the best thing about being you?
Talking to folks like you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean that. I mean that genuinely. I'm very lucky to get invited on to shows and
it's a privilege for me talking to you, so that really means a lot. Thank you.
It's a big one, because to show off, maybe able to share your story and some takeaways is important, I think, for our individual legacy. But when you receive an invitation to speak at an event, and there's going to be a couple thousand people in the audience, you're going to impact some of that audience, whether it be initially right away or at some point down the line. So it's also a big responsibility as well. But this is what it's all about.
What would you rather have? Gills to breathe underwater or wings to fly? What's better?
Wings to fly.
I'm messing with you now. Wings to fly. Why?
Man, go anywhere. I mean, I guess you can swim anywhere as well, but wings to fly, you get up nice and high. And I'm actually a bit of a birder. I'm a bit of an ornithologist in my private life as well. So I love bird watching and going out. Oh, dude, I'd do anything to be a golden eagle for a couple of days. That'd be awesome. You know, that'd be awesome. I might even sell one of my internal organs to be able to afford to be a golden eagle for a couple of days. It'd be great.
You're a bird watcher, and you're actually a talented watercolor artist. I've seen some very nifty watercolors on your Instagram. That's, I mean, really good enough to sell from my point of view. I mean, I haven't got a clue about art, but
I've had a couple people ask me for commissions recently and things like that, and I'm not really remotely interested in really making money from painting, but
it's
I
just
do
the
it.
hobby.
And you know, as we sit here, you know, here's one I made earlier. There's a paint palette, you know, watercolors right here.
Yeah.
I do it primarily to switch off.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not the type of person that's going to switch off by binging on Netflix. I want to be creative. I want to be making something. Just recently, my daughter Chloe asked me to do a couple of paintings for her flat down in London. So I did one of a blue tip, one of a robin. She framed them both. Now they're mounted and framed and on the wall, and she'll have them forever. You know, that's the kind of stuff I like.
Yeah, that's nice. So final message for our audience. If you could launch a message to my audience on a billboard, massive billboard, and the bombing down the middle road of Cambridge, whatever the biggest road in Cambridge is, what would you put on that? What would you put on that billboard?
3 words. You do you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Be yourself.
Yeah. Don't worry about what other people are up. You know, they're up for whatever they're doing. Like, don't look into the left, don't look into the right, just stay in your lane, do you, and focus on providing value the way that only you can do it. And if you do that, you know, consistently enough, I believe success it's inevitable. You know, it might not happen tomorrow, but it is inevitable if you're just you all the time.
That's the business of you. That's personal branding. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much. I love having you as a mentor. I love the Youpreneur incubator. It is absolutely, you know, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for all you give. Audience, if you haven't yet signed up for our webinar, it's on Tuesday. It's called How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Sticker. The sign up link will be in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. Be there, definitely, because the content is super valuable. Until then, stay in your game, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason loves reading John Grisham thrillers in his spare time. Thanks for tuning in to the Turn Yourself into a Booked Out Freelance Translator podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.